All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Faye. I'm the chair of the nominating committee of your ANA Illinois, and I am happy to welcome you to this evening's webinar to discuss, especially for people who are thinking about running for the board of director position. So we're here to pretty much answer your questions, to encourage you if you have that little spark brought you here. So answer whatever questions you may have, address whatever concerns you have, and pretty much hopefully see your consent after this webinar. So as we talk about the process, feel free to either write your questions down or put it in chat so that we can answer them.
Great. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to share the screen and go over where you can find all of the information that we have posted. And I'll do that very quickly. And please jump in at any point in time if you have any questions about anything. Want to make sure that people can. So the way you can find the consent on ANA Illinois website, if you just click on the homepage anywhere actually on that image, you will find our resource page about nominations. These are the positions that are open. They're also pasted in the chat box for anyone. These are the ones that are opened for this year. And if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll find additional information that we have put together over the years as resources. One of the most important is a conversation around board commitment, like how much time are we talking about if I were to run for the board? And I will tell you that the time commitment is very similar except for two positions. And on two positions, that is the president and the treasurer. So the treasurer is not up for election this year. The treasurer always is the year opposite of the president. So, but the treasurer reviews documents every single month, the financial documents, as does the president. But it probably is about 45 minutes to an hour a month for that alone. And then for the president, the time varies depending on travel. There are some national meetings that we have to attend in DC at least twice a year that the president attends. And then there are the quarterly board meetings. So prior to a quarterly board meeting, he's working with me, the executive director, to finalize the agenda, to make sure we're allotting enough time for the discussions that need to be had. So that's probably about an hour every, 3 or 4 months when we're doing our meetings. And then there are some speaking engagements. The president is asked to go out and talk to college students and to provide other things. And then for the board members, it is the quarterly board meetings, attendance, preparation for the quarterly board meetings. So reviewing the content. And some of our board members choose to serve on committees. So they have those additional responsibilities. And for instance, our treasurer serves as the chair of our finance committee. So that has an additional time commitment to it as well. And then it is any other prep. There are, especially during years where we might be pushing a certain piece of legislation or having a lot of questions coming from our members because of things that are happening at the national level. There are times where the board comes together in between those quarterly meetings via Zoom for calls. So I always say to people that you should probably plan at a minimum 2 to 2.5 hours a month that you would be committed to the association for either committee meetings or board meetings. And during a board meeting month, which occurs in, see if I can do this, March, June, September, December. And those are 4-hour meetings, and they're always on Saturdays. Usually the first Saturday in of those particular months. Then we just have some other information that are are developed based on policies we have created since the beginning, where we found that people needed more information or the board needed guidance, like legal and fiduciary obligations of the board. There's a policy, if you were to get elected, that you would have to sign that you received it and that you understood the policy. There is conflict of interest policy. There will be times as a board member where you might find yourself discussing an issue. Possibly, let's assume you're a faculty person. You could find yourself talking about an issue about a specific school or something that's been brought to our attention. And if the policy simply states that if there is a perceived or actual conflict of interest, that you would notify everyone on the board and then recuse yourself from that conversation. Then board confidentiality also. There are often times where board members receive information strategically about our legislation. We have in-depth conversations about policies before we make an official statement. So there's a lot of that. And then a basic briefing on how to read a financial statement. Then basic information about what our bylaws say are the responsibilities of the board of directors and the nominating committee. Then there are just some dates that you need to be aware of. If you're agreeing to consent to serve, we do have a candidates forum. A candidates forum is a meeting that Dr. Fay also is responsible for chairing and moderating. And it's just an opportunity for individuals to use I think it's 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 minutes each to kind of talk about, why did you want to run for office? What are you passionate about? Who are you as a nurse and as an individual? No pressure, not a professional speech by any way, shape, or form, but just a way for people to know who you are as they're voting. We do make that available as well. And then our online voting, and then when our election results. The other thing that we have on here is the questions that are in the consent to serve. And we are going to go over the consent to serve with you and kind of give you some pointers and some tips about completing it so that you feel comfortable. I do want to let you know that if you've talked to anyone else before, Dr. Fay can speak to this. We've changed the consent to serve this year to make it a consent to serve that you can begin and go back into. So when you start it, if you don't finish it, the system will send you a link and you can go in. Even if you do finish it, the system sends you a link. Because I don't know about you, but I write something, I hit send, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I should have said that. And this is going to give you that opportunity to make those tweaks all the way up to the point where the deadline is. So we're hoping that it makes people more comfortable. And it also gives you an opportunity, because you do receive that, for you to talk to your colleagues to say, you know what, I had this question and I'm not quite sure how to answer it. So I was hoping I could talk to you about it and give you an opportunity versus the good old Survey Monkey way we used to do it. And that doesn't give you any time for any input. So I'm going to switch over and we're going to go through the consent. So it is a Google form. If you've used a Google form, you know exactly what you're headed out to. You do not have to have a Google account, because our system is set up that we just ask for your email, and then that's all that we need. The first section is your basic demographics. And so name, credentials, address, city, state, zip code. We do ask for your county, your mobile number, your preferred email. And we do ask for preferred email so that that's the easiest way for us to reach you if you are slated, so that we can communicate with you if you're on the slate of candidates. Ooh, I need to fix that. That is not how you spell female, is it? Let's
I
just
was
do that right here. How many times do we have to look at that before we realize? We also are an organization that is very conscientious about making sure that people can identify who they are in the most comfortable way possible for them. So we ask for individuals to describe themselves and how they're comfortable with that. And then we also are very diligent about making sure that we are inviting diverse individuals to consent to serve, and that we're appropriately identifying you as you are comfortable to be identified. So race and ethnicity is on here, pronouns is on here.
Mistake. I didn't get it.
Highest education level is listed, so just the degree and the college that you attended, your current employer, your current position. And this is where we get into additional information. So here is where you would identify what position you are in. And I do want to make it clear that we do allow individuals to choose more than one position, but you can only be slated for one. So if you choose more, which means it gives the nominating committee an opportunity for us to kind of make sure that we've got all of our slots filled, we would reach out to you beforehand, the committee would, the chair, to ask you which is your preferred seat, so that we can appropriately, because you can only be elected to one. Now, the only caveat to that is if you run for nominating committee or a board position, you also can choose to run as a membership assembly rep. And membership assembly rep are individuals who go with us to the membership assembly in June of every year in DC. And we provide a stipend to help cover expenses for those positions. All right, Faye, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about when you filled out the consent. What kind of information did you include in the various areas?
Well, I'm going to preface this and say that I didn't think I was going to be in a role like this. Okay. I wanted to be a nurse, go to work, come home, take care of my family, do my thing, mind my business. But Dr. Kino is still on there, and Suzanne, they saw something in me that I did not want to show the world, and they pulled me out of my little shell and said, no, you have a spark, come forth and, let it shine and help advocate for nurses in Illinois. And I truly believe every single one of us has that spark. Every single one of us has that concern, especially since the ward seems to be a dumpster fire right now. We can't all be hidden in the shadows, and venting about it, but not step up to participate. So I'm really excited to see your faces on here, and even more so excited to hopefully get your consent to serve once this webinar is over. And I'm low-key also very jealous that you guys get to fill out a Google form for this, because when I submitted my consent to serve, I had to copy and paste the questions up the website, put it on a Word document, sit up all night thinking about what I wanted to share with the world, and then, go back in and submit the application. So this is so much easier. Some of the questions are going to ask you about your involvement with ANA Illinois. I didn't have very much involvement. I don't want you to feel like that is a deterrent to you submitting this. Instead, I want you to think about this as a job application. Like, what are the qualities you bring to the table that you think that would be very beneficial to the organization as a whole and to your fellow nurses? Like, what skills do you have, and how would you use those skills to advocate for nursing at, a state and national level? Because that is what we are truly doing here. So even if you've never had any specific positions within ANA Illinois, you can say, I'm a member, I read the magazine. I'm a nurse. I love what I do. What do just figure out a way to,
Done advocacy. I filled out advocacy alerts.
right,
When an email comes out and I'm asked to submit a witness slip, I'm always happy to do that.
right.
I think sometimes I do not think. I know that sometimes we forget that there's different levels of involvement and we don't appreciate every level of involvement that we get in. Maybe your involvement is I'm a member, and when I see something important, I go to work and I talk about it and I share that information. So all of those are pieces that are really important. And I echo what Faye said. Don't discount any level of involvement.
Like, even at your job, if you're part of a committee, that shows us that you are involved beyond the level of, just
Yeah,
going.
and there's different places for you to put that kind of information
Mhm.
In the consent. So the first one is prior involvement or participation. Honestly, being a member, all those things that I talked about, national level, we have that question in there because when you get to the president level, the question is what else have you done? How it really is just letting our members know, are you familiar with ANA National? Because everyone knows at the president level and the vice president, because if the president's not available, the vice president goes in. Members get a certain comfort level to know that you are a little bit aware of things, right? Or you've served on other boards. So don't think of it. There are a lot of consents and a lot of people who join the board of directors that get elected that say, I've never been involved at the national level. And then there are people who get elected that say, I've been on, for instance, a committee with ANA, or I volunteered for this task force, but they've never done anything at the state level. And that's okay too. So just be comfortable with that. And then we also take a lot of pride and recognition for nurses who serve in other boards. And we want to make sure that if you serve at any other level in any other nursing organization, state or national, that you are recognized for that. Because the part that's important for you to know about this section, and the reason why it's important for you to be able to edit it, is these responses are what we publish as your quote unquote candidate statement. So this is going to go in Nursing Voice. This is going to go on the website for people to be able to read if they aren't able or don't know who you are. And so you want to put enough information so people get a feel for who you are. So there's that piece. Faye, how did you feel about this question?
Public speak. Oh, okay. Working with legislators. Okay, so off the cuff, I have 2 boys. Okay, husband, 2 boys. I have a small business. I used to educate on the oncology unit at work. I used to present, our research at any opportunity that I had a chance. And so this was truly, really about showcasing my comfortability with showing up and able to speak to what I know and being bold enough to come to stages and showcase myself or whoever I was trying to showcase. So really, I want you to hype yourself up. And I think that's something that we don't do enough as nurses. We're very humble. We're like, yes, we take care of our patients, we do this, we do, but there are other things that we truly do to advocate for ourselves, our patients, our jobs, other people around us, our families that we don't even think about. So even if you've like gone to speak at your child's school for some reason or the other, that's public speaking, right? There's no limitation to how you can showcase that on this. So wherever you found yourself speaking up for others, for yourself, advocating, just put it on there because we want to read it and we want to know that you are bold enough to show up and show out for the organization.
The next one is just for board members. So if you find yourself consenting to serve on the nominating committee, or you're consenting to serve for ANA membership representative, you don't have to answer this question, but it is wanting to know your familiarity or your comfort level with looking at financial statements or financial fiduciary responsibility. So if you served on a committee where you talked about, things in the hospital, are you on shared governance where you're shown information? All of those are opportunities. If you have been or are currently in a position of leadership where you have any involvement in budgeting for your unit, you would want to include that kind of information. And then, of course, if you've served on a board before, every board is familiar with their fiduciary duties and responsibilities, so you would make sure that you highlight that area. And then this is what getting to know you. Describe a situation where you influenced others to take action within your workplace, your community, or in a professional nursing organization. So,
Go back to, like Susan just mentioned, shared governance, having meetings with, if you're in a leadership position, having meetings with other leaders, talking to staff, making changes, impacting changes. So again, truly think about you're applying for a position that you really want and list everything that's related to that question. And it is truly about introducing yourself to the other ANA Illinois members because they have to vote, right? So they get to know you through your candidacy statement. They get to know you during the forum, but having read about you ahead of time, it just allows them to be more comfortable and know that you're the best person for the role.
and then the last one, or the second to last, is where, think of it as an elevator speech. If someone were to walk up to you and say, "Oh, you're considering running for office? What is ANA anyway? What's the value of ANA?" Is just off the cuff, what would you tell somebody about why you would, why you're running and why ANA Illinois is important for potential members? Because as a board of directors, that is what yes, there are definitely decisions that are made by the board of directors that impact every single nurse all the time. That is what we do, right? We are the chief spokesperson in Springfield. We are making some really important decisions. But more than that, we know that the more members, the more nurses who understand the value of their voice, the more impact we have, the broader impact we have. So this is that kind of a way for you to describe to you, what is the value of ANA Illinois to potential members? Because as a board member, you are representing And as a potential board member, you should be able to, our hope is that you should be able to speak to that. Because you will be asked. I get asked. I'm 18 years in this role, nearly 30 years. Gosh, I'm aging myself. 30 years as a nurse. I've been a member since the day I graduated. And there are still days today where people are like, so why are you so committed? Because if they've never been exposed to it, if they never had the conversation in nursing school, if they work in an environment where, we oftentimes think of hospital nurses, but nurses are everywhere now, and not every nurse is working with a lot of other nurses. So they get exposed to things, and then there's no one around them to really talk about it. So sometimes they're just asking questions. And so think about it as that when you answer that one. And then think in your head, the last one I find is, I think, the most important because it showcases who you are. So these are some pretty benign questions that everybody is going to ask. Think about something that you want someone to know that you haven't already expressed that makes you stand out. For some nurses, it's about why they became a nurse. For some nurses, it's about the time they first impacted a patient. For some nurses, it's about a change in role from clinical to education, and they just can't imagine doing anything else but teaching the future generation of nurses, right? So share with us and with the members something about yourself that a story briefly that you haven't shared. And I always make yourself stand out is what my recommendation is. And then that's the end of the consent. And then you hit submit and the rest is history. Any questions for Faye?
Feel free to ask any questions you have. This is an open textbook exam.
Hi there. My name is Giovanna. I work at Rush University in Chicago, and I'm a nursing professional development specialist, but my background for the previous 8 years before that is oncology nursing. So shout out to you, Faye. But I just wanted to know, for somebody who's considering multiple roles, what advice would you give in terms of like determining the best for what we should apply for?
So let's talk a little bit about serving on the board. Every position is a 2-year term, except for the alternate, which you don't run as an alternate. You run as thinking you're going to have a 2-year term, but we take one extra person with us and they serve in a year for that. Just to give them a taste of what it's like, and hoping that they'll come back and then run for either that position again or a board position, because they have mixed with the board and, have gotten some passion for ANA. So it's 2 years. Every individual can serve 2 terms in a single position, no more than 8 years on the board. So I always advise, yourself best. You know where you're at in your career. You know where you're at in your personal life. Are you young and getting married in a few years? Are you young and you're going to travel? What is going on in your life and what do you want to achieve? So we have some people who like to do, they start at a director position and then they move themselves all the way through and then plan on running for president someday, or serving on the executive committee. And then there are those who hit the ground running and they say, you know what, I've got a lot of things that I want to achieve, and I'm just going to go for an officer position right off the bat because I don't know if I'm going to serve again. And I think that that's where I would serve best because I collaborate well with others. Officer positions, the executive committee doesn't meet frequently, but they do meet. And so the officer positions are a very collegial, not that the entire board isn't, but they get very close and close knit. And there's a lot of collaboration in those roles. So it is, they're individuals. So it is really truly a personal decision about what you think. And know that what you think today may not be what is reality 2 years from now, and that's okay too. We have people who serve on the director position, they're very happy with it. And they've taken a new role or, you know, they're doing something else in their life and they decide, you know what, I just can't do this. And I always respect those decisions. I think it's a very personal choice.
I mean, I started off as a rep. So I went to the membership, the national membership. That was my first position. Got to go to DC.
And she fell in love with us.
I did. I did.
You stuck around.
I was a sneak attack. But truly, you know, just being in that room with other people, walking the Capitol, knowing that my voice mattered, because it's one thing for someone to tell you, oh, your voice matters, and you're like, oh, whatever. But then to be actually in the room where you speak and you know everybody's listening and your voice does matter. And then got back, my 1 year was over. Now I'm chair of this committee, and just being able to do this and tell other people, like, come on board, like, it's not as bad. It's actually fun. And yes, you know, you're putting time aside to do this, but it truly is not as bad as you imagine, because we tend to make things worse in our heads and overthink things. It's fine. I promise.
I appreciate it. And you, just to clarify, you said that you could run theoretically for both or put down for both the director and for the nomination committee concurrently.
Nomination committee, or do you mind putting up the
Yeah, it's not, if you can run for, hold on a second, you want me to put that back up? I'm getting
yes,
there.
please.
It's these positions here.
Yes.
It is, you definitely cannot serve on the board and the nominating committee at the same time because the nominating committee is responsible for slating the board. But you can run for the board and a membership representative position at the same time.
Got it. Thank you very much for the clarification.
You're welcome. Joni or Jessica, do you have any questions or concerns or that come to mind?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm trying to, sorry, it's a little bit of a madhouse here because it's after work. So I had to stay muted, but I wanted to say hello to everyone. My name is Joni Riles. I have a quick question and was just wondering, what type of qualities does the ANA look for when they're I'm not trying to say nominating, selecting someone for the different positions. So for instance, do they focus on someone who are like still in the hospital? Or can you be on the corporate side, but still a registered nurse?
I just want you to be a nurse.
Okay.
To be
We have been very, very lucky to have diverse individuals on our board over the years. So we have educators, we have clinicians, we have managers, we have nurse scientists, we have retired nurses at times. We have a dedicated position for someone who has recent graduate that has to have only been out of school for 5 years, because we do value all of the different voices that come to the table. And we also know that ANA Illinois utilizes our committees and our other members as well as our organizational affiliates as well as our Illinois Nurses Foundation leaders to fill in the gaps, the knowledge gaps when necessary for a board. Not that they have the opportunity to vote, but that we have an opportunity to interact with them and ask them for advice or feedback before a decision is made. And all of that is important. So of all of the years, I think that it changes. And we have never been in a position where we've not slated somebody. We have had positions that haven't been filled, and someone who has consented for multiple positions and asked them if they would like to move over. We've had someone who, I'll use an example. If we had 3 individuals run for secretary, but we had a vacancy for director, we would talk with all 3 of them and explain to them the situation and ask if one of them were willing to move over to the director position. It's never required, Joni, so it isn't a slating in the typical slating. It's just trying to make sure our goal is to always have 2 individuals slated for every position so that our members get a choice.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much.
Welcome. I hope to see you. If I don't get to see you on the ballot, because your beautiful face and picture would be up there with you and I would know it was you, I do hope to see you and meet you at future events.
Yeah,
Or a new name.
absolutely. Thank you.
Welcome. Jessica, anything for you?
Jessica said no, she sent a chat.
Oh, okay. So on the screen, ooh, I need to change that logo. That is an old logo. That's our first logo. That tells you when we created this document. Need to update that. These are just some of the things when it talks about characteristics. It is the ability to I think the most important thing that members look for is somebody who is, when they commit to it, they're going to follow through with the role. They're going to be involved. Our board meetings are open, which means they're always by Zoom, but means members are signing on, and members do pay attention to whether the board members are engaging and, talking to each other and really having healthy debates about issues. And then that ability to subordinate special interest, it's about bringing your own special expertise to the table, but knowing that at the end of the day, you are voting for what's best for all nurses, not just your little segment.
Susan, sorry, real quick. Is the time going to extend
Pardon me?
the time for the meeting? Because it's counting down. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose.
Yeah,
everyone.
we'll be fine. It shouldn't shut off, but that is really all that we have for you today, except for to make you know that we're going to make this video public, just so everyone's aware, so people can watch. So if anyone is watching the video, to know that Dr. Faye is available. I'm available. Anyone on the board, reach out. We can answer your questions. The deadline for consent is scheduled to be the 15th of July. So if you are consenting, we would encourage you to do that before the 15th. And then we'll follow the trajectory, and the announcement for the election will be in November. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Any last parting words, Dr. Singla?
Go forth and fill out the consent.
All right. Talk to you all soon.